Hi, it's Jocelyn. So in this series, I'm working on a voice journal and audio analysis toolkit for people who want to change the way their voice comes across. I'm building it in Rust. So far we have a command line app which can record, playback, and import audio clips. There's two things that I want to do before we start building UI. So the first thing is adding the ability to export so we can use our audio clips in other apps and just avoid lock-in in general. And the second thing is in our record and playback functions. For the record function, we're relying on Control C to figure out when to end the recording. And also in playback, there's no way to like pause, jump forward, jump backward, that kind of thing. So we'll need some way to control the playback and recording state in a way that will work with the UI. So in this episode, I'm going to work on exporting. In the next episode, I'm going to work on controlling playback and recording. And then we'll start building the UI. So let's get started. So as I mentioned earlier, there's not a ton of crates for audio encoding. One that we do have though is Hound, which encodes waves. So we're going to add the ability to export wave files. So let's add that to our list of commands. So we have the name of our clip that we want to export and the path to export it to. And also just in case you want to like go somewhere else or use like a different app or something like that, or you just want to have your entire library, there also should be an export all commands. I'm just going to say the path should end in .wave for export because we only support wave files. And yeah, these are two commands, so let's get started. So we can just add them here. So for this, we have a name and a path. We're only going to support Unicode paths, so a string here is fine. And we'll say add the wave file since we only support waves. And then this, we can copy the documentation here. And let's see, that just makes a path. Now both of these require arguments, so we can enable the required else help attribute. And then we need to add handlers for those. Now we'll just have a placeholder and also for export all. Oops. Yep, just one argument for export all. And here I just guessed that export all would turn into a kebab case when writing the help, and I was right, so that's good. So we can say export, and this will fail. And we can say like clip1 and then /k.wave. And that prints out. So we correctly added our new commands. So exporting is going to look a little bit like playback, in that we're loading something from the database and doing something with it. So here right now we just say no such clip if there's not a clip. That really should just, I mean, we can just return an error really. So that's probably a little bit more appropriate. So here we'll load it, but instead of playing back, we are going to export it to the given path. And then we'll deal with export all later. So like I said, we're going to use hound. So we'll just add this to our cargo.toml. And then in audio clip, we can use that. So this will look a little bit like the playback function. It will have like a similar signature. It's not returning anything except potentially an error. But it does take a path. Okay. And they have an example for writing a file. So we're going to basically use this. So we have our spec. Which I guess is, yeah, still downloading hound and indexing it, but we can start for now. So all of our audio clips are always mono, so that's good. Our sample rate is in self.sample rate. Looks a little bit frozen. My laptop has a hard time doing both OBS and anything else. Okay, bits per sample. So we're using 32-bit floats. You can see there, F32. So there'll be 32 bits per sample. And for a sample format, that's going to be floats. So hound, sample format, float. All right. And now we create a writer. We have our path and we have our spec. We're not going to unwrap because we want proper error handling. So that's what the question mark is for. And then for each sample, we'll just record it. And again, this looks fallible. And it mentions here at the bottom that if it's that when writer is dropped, it finishes everything. But if we want to correctly handle the errors, then we need to use writer.finalize. And that way we'll get a nice error if anything happens. And if everything is good, then we can return OK. And that looks pretty darn simple. So let's see. What did I get wrong here? Oh, it's a reference and it just needs to be a float. All right, so let's first of all list our clips. Where's that error? That's main. It wants it to be a string reference. That's fine. Amazing. Okay, so I'm just going to record a new one actually. Heat from fire, fire from heat. Okay, and we can play it back. Heat from fire, fire from heat. And we can export it, hopefully. So we'll call it clip7.wave. Looks like that worked. Let's try playing it. Heat from fire, fire from heat. Looks like it was successfully exported. So the other thing remembering is that we remembered we wanted to assert that it ends in .wave, just because if you like ask to save it as like a.mp3, that will still give you a WAV file, and so that'd be surprising. So and we'll also pass in the path. All right, so now if we ask to save clip7.mp3, oh, sorry, clip7.mp3, then that will fail. I'm going to remove clip7.wave and try to save clip7.wave. And that looks like it still succeeded.
Heat from fire, fire from heat.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's it for export. Now we need to also implement export all. So I think that if we have, I think that either path should be an empty folder, in which case we'll dump everything to a path, or in an unexistent folder, in a folder that exists, in which case we'll create it and then dump all the files into that folder, if that makes any sense. That's kind of what I'd expect if I ran export all. So we can use standard path for all the kinds of things we'd want here. Actually, I'm going to rename path to folder just to be a little bit, that's a little bit more precise. Okay, so path is equal to, looks like we can just create it from a string. And then we can see that if it doesn't exist, we can try creating it. So there isn't necessarily a parent, like if you do just slash, then there won't be a parent, for instance. So we need to handle that case. And then hopefully parent is a directory. And is there a way to make a directory? Let's see. How do we do it in KDIR? Create dir. All right. And it looks like we can just pass in path there. I actually wonder if we need all this. Okay, so it says here if a parent of a given path doesn't exist, this function will return an error. So we don't actually need to check this. Okay. The second thing is we want this folder to be empty. Otherwise, you're probably doing something wrong. Like you don't want to. You probably don't want to export it to something where somewhere there's other files, because then they'll just get mixed in with those. So we hopefully there's a way to get a list of all the children. Returns an iterator over the entries within a directory. That sounds like exactly what we want. So that'll be path.reader. This will also return an error if it's like not a directory, so that's probably pretty good. So to check if it's empty, we can just hit the next and make sure it's none. And we'll just pass it the folder name. Okay. Now we can start writing things into the into that folder. So this is going to look a little bit like list in that we want to get all the entries. And then the second part's going to look a little bit like export. So it's possible, though probably pretty unlikely, that while we're reading it, like somebody, like another instance of the application removes one of these clips or something. So we do want to handle that case, even though it's probably unlikely. Okay, so there is a join function here. So this function to me is a little bit surprising. So it says see pathbuff.push for more details on what it means to join a path. And it says here that if the second path is absolute, it replaces the current path. So if we're going to like join the folder with the name, and the name happens to be an absolute path, which it can be, then it replaces, then it will just export to that absolute path if we're nice about this. So we need to make sure that we are joining it to a relative path in the current folder, so without any separators or whatnot. So I'm actually going to use path to help us get a string, which we know is just a file name. So to do that, I'm just going to call it save name. We're going to do path.new entry.name. And then I'm going to use the file name. Let's see. It's actually even better. File stem might be better, but I'm just going to do file name. And it's possible that it's empty, in which case, like if the file name is like ... that's just like probably invalid. In that case, I'm going to guess just return let's see, so file name returns an OS string. And then hopefully there's a way to, yes, there we go, to string, and then maybe there's even a, nope, doesn't look like it. So we can do to string reference dot to string. And if the OS string is not a valid string because it's not UTF-8, we'll just return an error. Right, load is valuable. We need to handle that. That is also valuable. Okay, now we have a name. But now a name is not necessarily unique. So we need to also handle that case. We're going to do that by prefixing the entire path with the ID. So to do that, we're going to say export path is equal to, so it will be path.join to this. So it's going to be the entry ID, and then our safe name, and then .wait, because we're going to be creating a wait file. And it wants a string reference, which is fine, or slice, which is fine. Great, and now we'll just need a string for this. And again, this doesn't need to be UTF-8. And now this is a string reference, which we can use the same way we did in export. That's already a string reference. Okay, the binding doesn't live long enough, so we'll just create a let binding to convince it to last a little bit longer. This needs to be mutable. And that is valuable. So now let's see if this works. So to do this, we'll just export everything to /exports. All right. And here we can see we have a bunch of exports. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if we list everything, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's pretty promising. Let's try playing one of them just to make sure that at least one works.
Feed from buyer, buyer from feeds.
Wonderful. So, oh yeah, we also try to export again. That failed because exports is expected to be empty. If we delete everything in exports, that works even though exports exists. So we tested that it works when exports is empty, when exports doesn't exist, and that it fails when exports is not empty. And looks good. Okay. I think that's everything for export all. So we've noticed that having a file name as part of, like as the clip name is pretty annoying. So I think we can use this kind of thing to make importing clips a little bit less, like to generate a better name when we're importing clips. So to do that, unwrap or else is a little bit annoying here because we want to return, or we might need to return an error. So to do that, instead I'm just going to use a match name. And so this is going to be equivalent, just keeps everything in the same scope. But now we can try to improve this a little bit. So there's also let's see. This looks like what we want. So if it's like something, if it's like a long path slash something dot mp3, it will just be the something. I cannot type. And then this is an OS string, which we need to convert to a regular string. And then we have a string slice, which we need to convert to an own string. Right, and it wants a reference. Okay, so hopefully here now, so let's see, if we run list, we do have at least one absolute path in here, so we can try importing that one again. I just figure where all my clips are. All right, so here we see that we imported import test.
All right, I'm testing.
And it looks like that worked. So yeah, so that's I think everything I want to handle in this episode. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.